Welcome to Money Masters. Hi, I'm your host, Nick Paleveda, and we are filming from Las Vegas at the Venetian. Today we have some very special guests. John Sculley, the former CEO of Apple Computer and author of this book, Moonshot, Game-Changing Strategies to Build a Billion-Dollar Business. His wife, Diane, is joining us also as well, and Chad Swenson, who's with Lantern Credit, right? Lantern Credit. And he's going to tell us how what Lantern Credit's all about. And of course, we have Kim Calhoun, who's been our panelist for many, many years. So we're going to start with John and find out, John, what are you doing? You've been in business for a long time. What's your what drives you to do business?
I wake up every morning as an optimist. I just have an insatiable curiosity to learn. I'm so blessed, Nick, because I have a partner, a wife, who enjoys the same things that I do, and we work as a team with the family office. And we are out there helping the next generation of entrepreneurs build the companies that they believe and we believe are going to change the world. And there's never been a more exciting time for an entrepreneur to be able to actually go out and take advantage of these incredible exponential growing technologies, the cloud, unstructured data analytics, mobility, now the new Internet of Things, and being able to adapt industry after industry and rethink of them with a better way of doing things. And the world that I grew up in, I'm sure many of the viewers of PBS have grown up in, is going to be going through the most accelerated change that anything I've ever experienced before. And there are opportunities to make it a big positive. And so our motivation is to say, not only how do we hand off the experience that we've gained in our generation to the next generation of business leaders like my partner Chad Swenson here, who's the one of the founders and CEO of an exciting company called Lantern Credit, which Chad will tell you about, but to also be able to share the experience we have in different industries, because we've been involved in a lot of industries over my working lifetime, and you start to see how you can connect the dots between them and get a perspective on opportunities and challenges that are hard for even the smartest entrepreneurs who haven't had that experience yet to be able to perceive.
But Chad, tell us a little bit about Lantern. Tell us what Lantern is. What is this?
So first and foremost, I mean, we're here and we're successful now. That mostly behind, inviting someone like John Sculley to help me build this company. It's interesting you mentioned Moonshot. My wife and I were actually in process of reading that book, and there were some things highlighted in that book that kind of resonated for me. And at the time, for us, is we're looking at credit scores and credit systems, etc., and how people have a difficult time with their credit score. And the concept was, how can we help consumers improve their credit score real time? This is a massive undertaking. Right. And so when you're going to go out and change the world in this fashion, you really need to reach out to people that can influence others in the markets, etc. So immediately I phoned my friend John Sculley. He and I have been friends for over a decade. And he's an incredible businessman, incredible mind. And the thought was, to build this great company, we need great people. And so I reached out to John and convinced him to write a big check and invest in the company, but also join us as vice chairman of the board. And he's been active in day-to-day, quarterly, and all the activities of the business. It's absolutely amazing to have this type of talent sitting with us that have operated these large businesses and help us build this one.
Right. Yeah, and Diane, are you retired, or does John take you along to all these places, or how does this all work?
Well, for 25 years I've built homes in Palm Beach, Florida.
Oh, sweet.
High-end homes for very wealthy people. But when John and I got married, I got tired of working, missing him and having him travel all the time. So we opened a family office, Sculley Family Advisors, and John and I worked together on everything.
Oh, sweet.
He's the face, I'm behind the scenes.
Well, I should say that Diane has a pretty amazing background, because in addition to building over 100 houses in Palm Beach, Florida, she's also a computer scientist, she's a mathematician, she has experience in high technology, and we both share a real interest in machine learning, artificial intelligence, and the ways it can be applied in, industry after industry. So it's obviously we're a very happy husband and wife, but we're also business partners too.
That is awesome. Can you tell us a little bit more about the artificial intelligence that you're entering?
Yes,
The space that you're entering into?
if you want to pick just one thing in high technology that is going to change the world, that will happen not 20, 30 years from now, but it's going to happen over the next 5 years. It's what's going on with artificial intelligence. If you think back to, even as far back as to the early days when I joined Silicon Valley, which goes all the way back to 1982, and at that time it was just beginning the vision that Bill Gates and Steve Jobs had, that we could empower knowledge workers with an incredible tool. They used to call it the tool for the mind, which was the personal computer that could actually begin to do productive things and could enable an expansion of productivity across our economy that the world has never seen before. And every high-tech company, it doesn't make any difference whether they were in the microprocessor chip business, whether they were in the networking business, whether they were in the software business, whether they were in the hardware business, every company for over 30 years has one overriding mission, which is enabling knowledge workers in organizations to have better and better productivity tools. And then something changed. And what changed was, instead of having to just program the computer with instructions to tell it what to do, now we're actually able to let the machines, the computers, learn from each other. And it sounds like a simple change, but it's not a simple change. It's a major change, because by 2020, McKinsey, Intel, Cisco, GE have all agreed that there'll be about 20 billion wireless connected devices, and yet there are only 7 billion people on the planet. And so most of these devices, their computers, their sensors, their wireless networks, are going to be machines talking to machines. And so this first generation is called machine learning. And that's really sort of opened the eyes of people what is possible. And then the next generation is what's called cognizant artificial intelligence. And the difference between the two, if you think back, Nick, to the 1990s when Gary Kasparov, who at the time was the world champion.
Of course, yes, and Deep Blue.
Deep Blue, exactly.
Right.
Deep Blue was a powerful supercomputer that IBM had built, and it actually beat Gary Kasparov in chess. Major headlines around the world.
I totally remember that.
Computer beats a genius. Well, what it was really doing was that chess is a game where if the computer can analyze 1 million possible moves in just a few seconds, it can actually outplay even a world champion chess player. And that's called machine learning, where the machine is doing pattern recognitions. It's matching, millions of possibilities and selecting one out of those possibilities that's better than the others. That's not artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence is a step beyond, and it's what happened back in the early part of 2016. Google acquired a company called Deep Learning, and Deep Learning is artificial intelligence, and it played the world champion in a game called Go. And Go is an Asian country creation. It's much more complex than chess. So it wasn't possible to beat a world champion in Go by just using the pattern matching machine learning technology that beat a world champion in chess. So it required reasoning. And so artificial intelligence is about enabling computers not only to learn from each other, but enabling computers to reason. And that's one of the foundational technologies. It's going to touch industry after industry. very, very rapidly.
Yeah, you know, John, I do remember the Deep Blue because I was the 3-time Florida State chess champion when that happened, and I was devastated when Gary Kasparov lost. I was folding, I was leaving, I said, you can't beat the computers anymore. Then I played on a trivia team with a guy named Ken Jennings, right? He got in front of this guy called Watson. Well, it wasn't a guy, it was his computer thing.
Yeah.
And he annihilated Ken Jennings in trivia.
Yeah,
and I said, wait a minute. It's the end of the world for us humans. We have no other place to be because they beat us at chess, they beat us at trivia. I don't play Go. Can you explain to us a little bit what fintech is?
And fintech is all about the customer. And so it isn't just the back office automation, it's for the customer. And it now means that we're seeing that in some cases the banks are pivoting. They're pivoting from strength because they're very, very profitable. They're pivoting towards enabling their customers, in this case the consumers, without intermediaries in between, to be able to have more to say, more control, more educated about things that can be done far less expensively, and with the use of artificial intelligence, more things can be done for you. It's like having your own personal advisor, but it's all happening in the background. And it's a fundamental change in the banking system. Companies that are being created as alternatives to the bank. In other cases, there are banks saying, you know, we want to be a part of that fintech. And the company that Chad is a founder of and CEO of, and he's brought me in as an investor and advisor, board member, is one of the most disruptive companies in the fintech world because it's focusing on something that is characteristic of the American consumer, which is 70% of the GDP in the U.S. is consumer spend. And Americans culturally live on credit. And there are so many inefficiencies, as Chad was saying, you know, in our system of how do we get people to get the best possible cost of credit? How do they avoid being turned down, whether it's a credit card or a loan? How do we unlock, particularly the middle income people, the people $75,000 to $150,000 a year, who actually in many cases have more credit worthiness than their credit score reflects? And how do we take their credit score from being this abstract number that we don't always understand, and how do we turn it into what we call an intelligent credit score or intelligent rate card that can be used by the banks with their customers to be able to offer, you know, all kinds of new services, things that are called in this era robo-advisory services.
Right, the robos.
It's things that can be, you know, wealth management services. It can mean, you know, partnering with a whole range of different commercial businesses. For example, somebody may need $25,000 to get a full dental implant. You know, how do you finance that? You know, how do you avoid paying 20% interest rates when your credit worthiness actually might justify that you could pay half that? And so these are some of the, you know, real problems that consumer fintech and specifically the company that Chad and I are part of, and he's leading, Landon Credit, is able to do for the banking system.
Now MoneyMasters, we're about financial education for everybody. And John, you've been around for a long time. You have Chad also. So question isn't Diane. Question for all of you. How many of you took money and banking when you were in high school?
I don't think any of us did.
Okay.
Right?
No, well, why didn't you take money and banking? You're all into it now.
No, it is
What
interesting. We focus on things that...
Was it offered in your high school? I guess
It wasn't offered.
Was it offered in your high school?
Wasn't offered.
Wasn't offered. Now, you just told me it was like 30% of our sector, and did you take algebra or math?
No, I said it was 70%.
70%. Okay, 70%. Yet you're telling me in high school none of you ever took money, banking, or finance classes in high school.
Not in high school, college.
Okay, right. In college they'll offer it, but not in high school. And why don't we provide basic financial education in the high schools? What's the deal here?
It's a wonderful question, and I think we all know that our K-12 education system is aligned with the wrong century.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
We're in agreement with that.
Yes,
Totally
we
agreement
are.
with that.
No,
it's like 18th century, 17th century
I mean,
education.
it's basically
Sure.
aligned for people who are entering the early 20th century,
Right.
Who were living in an entirely different world than we are, and it never adapted.
Right,
And
never moved.
there are a lot of reasons. You know, you've got powerful constituencies that don't want to change, and the reality is that if we don't adapt, you know, a whole generation of young people are going to miss out on a future which they could well be a part of in a different way.
Right, yeah, but at the same time, I saw in the hackathon tons of these young people putting out some really brilliant ideas.
Yeah.
Really, within like 24 hours, they had created these monster programs, and I thought, we got a lot of brilliant people out
Absolutely.
there, but in our high schools, we're training them about, you know, Algebra 1 or you know,
technology, but not how to manage their finances.
Yeah, there's nothing on
And it's very hard
finances.
for them to get the startups going, kind of like what you're providing. You're providing some value-added resources to someone. You're providing him your experience and all of maybe the errors that you made, you're able to avoid growing with Lantern. But in doing that, is there some advice that you would give?
You are focused on not making mistakes. When you are in the real world, you discover that you get your best learning from the experience of making mistakes, and that you can become a victim of your success. So somehow, the school system is completely misaligned with where you're going to be when you go out into the working world.
Right.
And you're absolutely right about that. I didn't even know how to write high school, and had to go learn how to do my taxes at the library. But I want to shift over to Chad for a second. What was the one thing, maybe problem, that you had hoped to solve with Lantern? The one thing that maybe you saw first?
Well, I think there's, and I think this is what attracted John and Diane to the program, is there's a noble cause aspect to what we do. We talk about, you know, in high school not teaching finances, etc., but that core to family problems generally comes from financial troubles. And so for us, you know, we saw that one of the bigger issues is people, how do they manage their credit today? Do they understand their credit report? Giving them education, you know, giving them tools and so on and so forth. But that's kind of the genesis of it, is we feel like we can develop and deliver a technology that can make consumers better financial citizens. And we call it financial wellness. Because ultimately, you see families destroyed because their finances are in disarray. It's so core
Right.
to who we are. And but it's interesting. So we feel like, again, it's a very powerful tool. It's self-learning. It does a lot of the, you know, with the AI, a lot of it's masked in the background. But we leverage that technology to make it simple for people to better understand their finances and better manage their finances.
Yeah, Chad, isn't that the #1 cause of divorces? Like marital strife is finances? Isn't that what goes on?
It is, and you can see it as the core or the root of all the you know, domestic violence and some of the other things. Can be that core of, you know, that family provider is, you know, bringing in income and it's not managed properly. It creates friction within the marriage and so on and so forth. So, but that's the noble cause. That's why I'm here. I know that's why John and Diane are here, and that's at the root of why, you know, we're going to roll this technology out.
That's awesome. Diane, with your computer science background, do you get to play with it and test it out, beta test it?
Yes.
Do some
I
beta
have to
testing for
teach
them?
John how to do it.
You have to teach John.
And she does, too. She's
Make sure
really
that's
good.
how to use the
She
computer.
tries to break it, we try to fix it. That's what we're trying to do.
Right.
Well, you have to have someone to break it.
That's right, we need that, that's right.
So what drives you guys to still stay active? I mean, you know, you live in Palm Beach County, they play a lot of golf, I know, tennis and all that stuff. Why don't you just say, well, I'm just going to do that and forget everything else?
You know, my
what's the
husband
deal?
has a curious mind,
Yeah.
and he's up at 5:30, I get up at 6. We go to bed early, but I think that he thrives on work. And I think if he stopped, we're not golfers, we tried.
Right.
I think he thrives on work, and if he stopped working, it wouldn't be him.
Yeah. Well, I think it's great because the thing is it adds resources that we lose if we don't have this mentor relationship out there. You know, people retiring. I've seen that a lot where they could have a massive contribution to society if they just stay active, you know, and working with the younger generation.
He's a master of so many domains that it would be a waste if he couldn't share it with smart people like Chad.
Every time we go to a hackathon, we speak a lot at technical universities. We were just recently at MIT, at Tufts University. We're over at Tsinghua University in China. We were at ETH in Zurich, the top technical university in the EU. So we're out there, and when we see these, how much talent there is. I mean, every time you get discouraged listening to the news that, you know, this is coming apart and people can't agree to work together and stuff, and then you look at the talent that is coming up, you know, in our country and in other countries around the world. There is no lack of talent going forward. There are some amazing discoveries that are going to enable these talented people to do things. And hackathons, it's hands-on.
Right, hands-on.
You know,
I totally agree.
So, no, our don't drink Red Bull, and I don't stay 30 hours.
24 hours now.
24 hours.
But our role is to say, look, we want to encourage these young people, and we want to give them some context. We can give them context.
Sure.
You know, it's not that they aren't smarter than we are, but they don't have the wisdom of context, of having seen things over decades and decades, and what's possible and what are challenges. And they often underestimate the challenges, and they often underestimate the long-term opportunities.
Right.
You're right about that.
Yeah.
Chad, you know, you're not new to the technology or the industry.
Right.
You've got many years of background in this, but and in doing a startup, I'm sure you understood the business infrastructure and how to put it in place. But as a startup, I mean, I believe is a great mentor.
Incredible. And I wanted to share how actually I met John. He, this is several years ago. I don't think it had only been 5 years since he'd left Apple. And he was actually doing a conference in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Yep.
It was John and it was Barry Diller was there, and maybe another gentleman. But in any case, John was speaking to thousands of people in this conference, and I was just enamored in his story about Pepsi. I thought, this is a phenomenal individual, and then certainly about Apple and the growth there, et cetera.
Okay, wait, he was with Pepsi too?
PepsiCo.
So you were the CEO of Pepsi?
I was, yeah.
Then the CEO of Apple?
Yes.
And now you're in FinTech? Is there
And
other
health
things in healthcare?
And
Okay,
health
okay, I just
tech,
want, I just want to know. Okay,
So-
we could continue. I'm
But
curious.
it's fascinating because, so he's coming out of this event. I was a young entrepreneur, and he was coming out of the event. He had his security with him, and I reached out to him and said, "Hey, John, do you got a minute?" And here he just got done speaking with thousands of people, and I had the courage to go up to him, and he had a lot more muscle back then too. So, but in any case, so he said, "Yeah, I've got a few minutes," and he carved off 30 minutes. But having John in my life has been amazing, and it's I'm encouraged that working together, there's really no issue we can't solve.
So
Yeah.
why would Diane and I want to go lie on the beach?
With people like this.
Right.
We can spend time with people
right.
like Chad.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I enjoy a good book or working with technology and new ideas and startups more than I do sitting around watching TV or goofing off on the beach.
Right.
I agree with you, but I mean, this is great what you're doing.
Although I like
Surfing.
I do like to goof off on the beach.
I surf
Very
for
nice.
kids, I
I
do.
I have to get there.
Oh,
We
you're a
have to get
surfer.
it in Newport Beach. There's
Okay.
purpose behind our offices.
Okay.
Okay,
So-
okay. Which is the better beach? The California
Well,
beaches or the Florida beaches?
Well,
So,
he's
Oh, we
actually a
won't go
champion.
there.
well, no,
Surfer.
I actually
Oh,
wanna
surfer, that's a
I'm gonna
different
have to
story.
answer.
World
I have to
champ?
answer that.
You're gonna
Not world
answer that?
champion. No,
Okay.
don't ever say world champion.
All right.
Are
Because
you a
Kelly
master?
Slater might be watching PBS.
Okay, fine.
I'd get in
We'll
trouble.
keep that down.
The best beaches, certainly California, some of the best. Florida, it's great. There's great waves there, but it's sharky.
Yes.
A lot of sharks in Florida.
Yeah.
Concern
There have
me.
been a lot of sharks in Florida for a long time.
Yeah. So, and I'm
Land
sure
sharks too.
Yeah, land sharks. Right.
that's true. But yeah, no, I love California beaches. There,
Okay.
Newport's my spot. So.
All right.
Newport's nice.
Sweet.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah. Well, we do want to thank you all for coming
Thank
to
you.
Money Masters. Yeah, thank you
Oh,
for your
wait,
time.
there's one more person
One more
we need to
person we'll
bring
bring
in
in.
here.
Okay.
Just for a
Wait,
minute.
just a minute.
Yes?
Got one more person. Come on in. Got one more person.
I mean, this whole
There we
road
go.
show here
Yeah,
isn't
road show.
complete without all the backbone that goes into this
Well,
organization.
and I have to
Right.
tell you about
Yeah.
Lana. Lana is Chad's wife and his partner.
Right.
They are two amazing people. They have a wonderful family.
Mhm.
What I love about the two of them is that they have such great family values. They're authentic people. They care about important issues that touch other people's lives. They're very active in the Mormon Church. And it's just wonderful to work with people who have, this authenticity and this, purpose, driven life. And they're great couples.
And of course, John Sculley has his book, Moonshot. Okay, game-changing strategies built for a billion-dollar business, but also a bunch of great people that we have here today. Thank you for attending Money Masters.
Pleased to meet you. Take